Welcome to this episode of the Healthy Parenting Connector. I'm Katie Kimball from Kids Cook Real Food and also Kitchen Stewardship, where for 10 years now, in fact, I think it's 10 years today, the day this video is posting. Hey, it's our 10-year anniversary celebration. I just figured that out. I'm not doing anything else, but this is it. This is exciting. Okay, you guys. You know, I've been helping families stay healthy without going crazy at Kitchen Stewardship for 10 years. And when I started doing these interviews, my team and other people started saying, you know, Katie, you should interview your husband because he had to, poor guy, he had to go on a journey too, right? Like my journey to real food has kind of been out there. It's kind of been public and it's been all about the baby steps, and some of them were not so baby. We'll get into that today. Again, poor guy, my husband had to make all these changes in his diet, and now I'm making him talk on camera, but he's a super good sport. My guest today on the Healthy Parenting Connector is my husband, the best father in the world, Chris Kimball. And as always on the Healthy Parenting Connector, we connect parents who want to raise healthy kids with experts who have the information they need. Now, we're not experts, but we've got a lot of experience. We have raised 4 kids, ages 4, 7, 10, and 13. And over kind of that 13 years of parenting has been our shift from Hamburger Helper, bottled dressing, daily soda pop habit, not caring about exercise. I don't think we cared when we first got married, to where we are today. By no means perfect, but it's a really, really long way and many steps from there. So I get to interview my husband Chris today about his real food journey. Now again, I've taken a ton of steps along that path. And my audience has probably heard a million times how when I was pregnant, I started realizing how every bite counts, and I started caring about our food, and then I started blogging, and we got into raw milk and traditional foods and all that stuff. And what I thought was healthy eating has shifted a lot over the years. But Chris, what's your side of the story? I mean, what did it feel like as I made these shifts, and were there any that stand out in your mind as more difficult than others?
I mean, sure, to begin with, it felt abrupt. You know, all of a sudden we're making these changes and they're a lot different than I've been living my life at the time. So there was definitely some friction at the start to get going.
What, do you remember any particular food items that drove you crazy when they disappeared?
Well, I think at the top of the list is Hamburger Helper, because that was the one that, you know, I thought that was cooking when you made Hamburger Helper. I really enjoyed it. I think there were some times where you and I would make Hamburger Helper together, so it felt like an activity that we did, and then all of a sudden that's now vilified, and so that was kind of one of the first things I think we cut, and that was an experience.
Mm-hmm. I think I remember saying, like, okay, we have 3 boxes left, or whatever, however many were in our pantry. Like, when those are gone, we're done.
Yeah, I can remember we used to, you know, look for sales, and we'd stock up.
Like 10 of them,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
I know. So then, and that was also something you felt like you could do in the kitchen.
Right. Yeah, it was my way of contributing. Now that's gone. So.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about cereal, because we had moments in our early marriage when we'd have 40 boxes of cereal, all purchased on sale with coupons, because again, that's how I was kind of keeping my family healthy at that point, was budget healthy. And that has shifted too.
Yeah, you know, I mean, cereal was super. You know, first of all, I grew up on cereal, so it was super good. You know, I loved it. Look forward to the mornings to get up and eat cereal. It was quick, it was easy, didn't have to think, and like you said, another thing we stocked up on. So when that went away, that was also tough. Mm-hmm. You know, now we're cooking eggs. In some cases, oatmeal, which we're soaking the night before. So more prep, more thought, more effort.
You don't look forward to breakfast anymore?
Well, no, now I do. I've come around, and I quite enjoy the eggs and vegetables and stuff that we have.
Do you remember, like, when I visited a raw milk farm for the first time?
Yeah, sure. You told me about it, and you said, I'm going to go check it out. And I thought, that's great, you know, go check it out. Normally, it takes you a little while to make a decision, so I didn't think anything was about to change. But it was like that day, I think, you came home and said, yeah, so we're going to jump into this raw milk thing. Which
meant, in Michigan, it means driving to the farm once a week and getting huge gallon jars of raw milk.
It also means a lot more cost, too.
Yes.
So that was something to get used to. Like, how much does the milk cost now? And why is it so much better? And and especially that at first I did not enjoy the taste of the raw milk.
That's right. Forgot about that. Yeah. What did you say when I said, like, we're doing it? You're like...
Yeah, I said something like, I thought this was a pipe dream. Like, I didn't expect you to actually jump in.
Right.
And then all of a sudden we're on the hook. We have to buy it every week. We have to go and pick it up. And it was different.
Yes, it was. Yeah, I put you through a lot. What about, so it's taken, I'd say, about 10 years for you to shift from Hamburger Helper lifestyle to like where I really felt like you were on the same page as me. Like now we roll our eyes about the same things. We're skeptical about the same things. You're better than me at turning down like brownies and cake and junk food when we're out at parties and stuff. So I'm a little jealous about that. There is hope. There is hope, ladies. And men, even whoever the spouse is who wants to make the healthy changes, there is hope for your other partner. What do you see as like, can you look back and see different milestones of like, that would be one. So the Hamburger Helper ending, the cereal disappearing. And actually we were talking earlier about this, and I think I remember once or twice where he like came home from work and he like had Frosted Flakes and Crispix, like his favorite cereals. I was like, what are you doing? He's like, well, if you're not going to buy them, like I really wanted some, I'm going to buy them. And I'm like, well, how much did you spend on those, man? Like, if we're going to buy this stuff, you got to let me do it the right way on sale. So there was like a little bit of a backtrack for a while, I think.
Right.
Where I was like, okay, I'll buy it, but we got to at least get it on sale.
Right. Because you had made the decision. I hadn't made the decision. So it took me a little while to come around, and I wasn't ready yet.
You weren't, yeah. Sometimes people aren't ready. What do you see as other milestones along the journey that you kind of like changed and shifted and got ready for different changes at different points in 10 years?
So I think a really big milestone was when I gave up soda pop. It's something I'd known wasn't good for me, but I really enjoyed it. I actually used it as kind of a stress relief when I have a stressful time at work. A pop would kind of perk me up. And so I like to try to make healthy choices for Lent, because during Lent I find it easier to make a healthy choice, but to have another reason to do it. So have that spiritual reason to do it. It gives me a little more willpower. So I always try to do something like that. So for a couple of Lents, I would give up pop. And at the start, I would always go back, So the last time I gave up pop, I just chose to kind of keep going after Lent was over. I thought, well, I already made it this far. Let's see if I can make it another 2 weeks. And let's see if I can make it another month. And then it got to the point where it was just too interesting to keep trying to keep the
streak going.
Keep the streak alive, and I didn't want to give in. And then probably 3 months after Lent or something, I thought, why do I ever need to have another pop? It's terrible for me. I'm not missing it now. And so I just made the decision to cut it cold turkey, and I haven't gone back since.
And we've talked a couple of times about why you don't even have like one at a party or whatever.
Yeah, just because you have one and the streak's over. First of all, I have that to hold on to. Like, I haven't had a pop in, 7 years now?
We think, yeah.
Yeah, so, that goes out the window if I have one. And then I just know my personality is such that, having one and not having the reason to not have another means that I could easily slip back into it. Although I think my taste buds have changed enough now that I could probably not enjoy it as much as I used to.
I agree. I think now you'd be fine. But definitely at the start, it was just like, no.
Right. It was better for me, the way I know my personality is, it was better not to try another one.
Yeah. And for other people, it might be like, oh, like I'll have one every week, or one only when I go out to eat, or whatever. Like, people can handle different kind of constructs or different rule sets for yourself. But yeah, you knew about yourself. It was going to be all or nothing, which is kind of how it happens even now. Like, we'll make like really, really healthy changes, but then Christmas will come, and as you start to slide back in.
Yeah, there's definitely, we're not at the end of the journey yet, and there's definitely some cyclical things that happen in our nutrition, where, I'll get good for a while, and then, like you say, Christmas is a big one. You kind of fall back, and you kind of get back on the horse in January and try to stick it out.
Yeah, so after you gave up soda pop, which we call Pop in Michigan. That was funny that you edited that. After you gave that up, I feel like that was one of the big like data changes where you got tests done that went from bad to good.
Right.
Can you talk about that?
So I think you're talking about triglycerides. So yeah, those were super high for me, and I definitely have a strong family history of terrible hearts.
Terrible genetics.
So yeah, my triglycerides being super high.
Super dangerous walking
Even
heart attack.
even as a young person, certainly giving up pop, cutting back on the sugar from the cereal and other grains that I did, seeing that number go down was a real eye opener, and that's the best way to get motivated for these changes is seeing the results.
Mm-hmm.
You can read about them all you want, but until you do them yourself and see the positive results, that's what's motivating to keep going, and that's what happened to me.
Yeah, 100%. We still have like the triglyceride results from way back like 9-10 years ago. And one year the doctor circled it and said, too high, low fat diet. And like literally the very next year circles it, too high, low carb diet. And we were like right. that was one of the cynical shifts I think in our marriage where we're like the doctors, first of all, like a 2-word prescription, like a 3-word prescription, you're not gonna and then they sent a little brochure of this 1,800 calorie diet
right.
for my like big buff husband. We're gonna like, he's gonna starve, he's gonna hate himself, have no energy.
Yeah.
So
not sustainable.
Not sustainable. No. And it just kind of brought to clarity that maybe our MDs don't always know exactly what they're talking about, especially when it comes to nutrition.
Well, this is the same MD too, right?
Same MD.
Just changing, yeah.
Yeah, literally same doctor, 1 year apart. We're like, okay, like they don't know what they're talking about, so we're just going to find our answers elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked. Are there any other moments where, because that was still kind of me. That was me going, your triglycerides are high. The doctor doesn't know what he's talking about. Here's what I'm reading.
Mm-hmm.
Here's some things I think we can try. Were there points where you started taking more agency?
That would probably be when I chose to do the Whole30 diet.
And that was a Lent thing too.
Right. Yes. Lent is a great opportunity for me to find something healthy and try it out.
Mm-hmm. And I would say, for people who aren't Catholic or maybe who don't even have a faith, who couldn't kind of infuse the I'm doing this for God as a sacrifice thing, we do things better when we do them for something outside ourselves, most people. And if that has to be your spouse or your kids, like do it.
Right.
What do you want? Do you want to see your grandkids? Do you want to see your grandkids? Yes? Well, what's important? Your health.
Yeah. Even if you were going to sign up for like a diet bet, like dietbet.com, you can lose some weight and get a little money for it. Like that's a great opportunity. Just anything to give yourself more motivation and give yourself more willpower, I found is really helpful.
Sure, and to see a win when you see it work.
Success is awesome. It's motivating.
Do you remember why you found the Whole30? Because I remember you saying, I think I want to do a Whole30, and I was like, what? Like, who's talking?
Well, certainly at that point, we kind of had a general progress towards less grains and less carbs, and I was getting some positive results from that. So that was part of it. And the other part was I read it, and it's finite. It's 30 days, and you do it, and it's not that much sacrifice, compared to some of the other things you could do. Mm-hmm. And so for all those reasons, I thought it was pretty attractive.
Mm-hmm. And, in all of our shifts and changes, there was one particular moment, the very first time we gave up grains, and that was pretty revolutionary.
Right. Again, once you see it in your body, then that's when you're motivated to keep doing it.
The belief kicks in, yeah. Do you remember me walking in the door after hearing a talk?
I do, yes.
What did I say?
Okay, well, you said you're giving up definitely grains. I think there was some other stuff.
Dairy, legumes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You're just going to cut all these things that could potentially be causing inflammation in you.
Tomorrow.
Right, yeah.
I laid down the law because
I was sick, and at that point, I heard what you said, and it wasn't that I was excited to try it, honestly, because I was in pain, because I've been having some terrible digestive issues for a long time.
Mm-hmm. So Chris was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, which is a chronic inflammatory disease of the small intestine. It's an autoimmune disease, and he'd had surgery, had about that much of his intestine taken out just after college. But we were, I think, fortunate. I think we lucked out, really, to have no medications and no symptoms for about 7 years, I think, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Usually by 7 years, you're going back for more surgery. So that was right when, like 2 months of chronic diarrhea. That's no fun.
Right. It's no fun, and there was always that worry that, okay, now I'm going to suffer from this disease. And
forever, yeah.
And I'd been through it before, and that wasn't exciting.
Right. We thought this is the beginning of prescriptions. This is the beginning of pain. It's the beginning of doctors. It's the beginning of not feeling like you can go out without knowing exactly where the bathroom is. Like, it's very, very stressful, emotionally, mentally, psychologically, physically. And he'd been to the doctor. He'd had the stool test. You had prescription antidiarrheals, which made zero change whatsoever.
Right.
And how long did it take for that grain-free, lichen-free, dairy-free?
2 days. 2 days. It was like a 180 of symptoms. It just went away. It was amazing.
Back to better digestion than you'd had basically your whole life.
Yeah.
That's what you said.
Yep.
I was so excited. I called up the doctor. I'm like, guess what? We found something that works. This is what we did, and it was amazing. And they were just like, okay. I'm like, don't you want to tell other patients? You could fix people. Okay. They literally didn't care. Again, so there's another shift kind of in our cynicism. Why don't they care? Yes, it's N equals 1, but how do we get to N equals 2? You try it. It didn't hurt anything. It's not.
Well, it's hard for them to make money from that.
See, he's on the same page as me now. Us being on the same page didn't happen with the first time we did grain-free, dairy-free, and that was when we reintroduced stuff and kind of figured maybe Chris has a gluten sensitivity. So that changed life in another direction. I was big on sourdough at that point. We ate a ton of gluten, and my whole blog shifted, and I didn't make sourdough anymore. I didn't make bread. Life really, really changed at that point. You still weren't on the same page. I would say the Whole30 we did a couple times, but we still weren't completely in sync until you read a book.
Right.
But you didn't read a book.
Listen to a book. Actually, I think I did read that book.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah, I don't think it was available in audio form, so I think I actually did the hard work and looked at the words.
Okay, so you read a book, which was?
The Calorie Myth by Jonathan Baylor.
Why do you think that book, more than 10 years of your wife talking, made such an impact, my dear?
I don't know, to be truly honest with you. Certainly I think the first half of the book, he lays out the whole idea of basically since the 1970s is kind of when the food pyramid started and the government recommending all these food changes. And then it correlates that with the rise in diabetes and heart disease and all that other stuff. And just kind of opened my eyes to the idea that the food industry is there to make money at whatever cost possible. And the medical industry is also kind of into that. And it all the systems kind of all funnel into that and the money. And
and with some of the experiences we had, you could go, I can believe that.
Right, for sure. Yeah, there's got to be a reason that all of a sudden heart disease is so prevalent, and
yeah, people didn't used to die and be so overweight, and all the stats are changing. So the Calorie Myth, that's when now I got to tell this story, because now I'm watching him make changes. He's attempting, actually purposely getting out spinach and putting it in his eggs, whereas he used to be the guy who would be fine with spinach as long as he could pick it out. He would surreptitiously make the little pile of spinach from the soup, so the kids couldn't see. Thank you for that, by the way. But now he's actually purposely putting it in his eggs. You started drinking green tea. You started craving vegetables, and I think cutting grains even more, cutting the carbs even more.
There was definitely a point where I viewed vegetables as basically a way to try to fill yourself up without eating bad things.
Okay.
And it started to shift to, no, you want to eat vegetables because of what they give you. And that was an interesting shift in my mentality. So, and that book just kind of taught me that. So, yeah, I went out of my way to add nutrients, and they talk about sane foods and non-sane foods being the grains and the carbs and stuff like that.
So we're going to talk about exercise and physical activity in just a second, because that's actually one area where Chris like made the changes on his own, and he is still dragging me kicking and screaming, interestingly enough. But first, 2 more topics we got to talk about, because sugar and fast food were massive changes from when we got married to now, and even just like in the like palate level. How'd that go?
Yeah. And I think soda pop was a big instigator of that, right? Sweet used to be fun and great, and now I've got to the point where I don't enjoy it as much. But it's been a slow journey, right? It's been gradual. When you first started making yogurt, I needed to put sugar or honey or something sweet in there besides the fruit.
I think it was white sugar first, then honey, lots,
right.
prolifically, and then stevia.
But
But now, nothing,
it's
right?
all weaned, nothing. And I don't think I would enjoy more sweet sugar now, more sweet yogurt. And it's that way with a lot of stuff, even down to our wine. We used to, like sweeter wines, and now the drier the better.
Right. You drink like a sweet wine and we're like,
Yep.
like maybe we're done, we're good.
We'll go out for, a drink or something on a date and have a cocktail, and we tell them to leave out all the sweetener. So it's really been quite the change. I think the cereal plays into that. Just the less you eat sugar, the less you crave it.
Yes. The less you eat sugar, the less you crave it. And
the less you enjoy it.
The less you enjoy it.
Yeah.
Which is even better. Yeah. And then what about fast food? That's been huge.
Yeah, fast food is very similar. I knew for a long time that fast food wasn't healthy, but I still enjoyed it. So, you try to cut down and do it sparingly, but you still take the opportunities when they present themselves.
Yes,
and you're
it's
out
a
with
treat.
People. Right, exactly. But eventual weaning gets you to the point where, I got to the point where I noticed that I didn't feel great after fast food meal. I used to love Taco Bell, and I would still got a chance to go out for lunch, when I was working, I'm going to have some Taco Bell, but then I noticed I didn't feel great afterwards. And so now it's to the point where it's not worth it to me. I don't,
The last time your friends went to McDonald's, you got a coffee.
Yes. Yeah, and that was just this last year, There'd be 2 or 3 times maybe I would have fast food in a year, and it's a special occasion, I'll do it this time. But it's kind of switched to the point where it's just not worth it, so I just prefer to get a coffee and not feel bad.
Right. Which, by the way, there's a massive parenting tip hidden in that story, and it's to talk to your kids about how they feel after they eat food, right? Because it's important. Like, sometimes our minds tell us we want that because it's a treat, right? But we have to teach our minds to listen to our bodies. And I do think the healthier you get, maybe the more your body reacts to food that's kind of off the grid for you, and you're like, oh, like, it's just not worth it. It just doesn't feel great. And we were talking earlier about how we look at people who drink pop now.
Yeah. It feels like when you see someone smoking, you're like, oh, I really shouldn't be doing that. That's the same way I feel about pop. And it wasn't that long ago that I was happily one of those people.
Right. 7 years ago, we drank pop at least 3 times a week. 10 years ago, multiple a day. It
was the same type of thing where I knew it was bad for me, so I was trying to cut it out, but I was happy not to get rid of it completely. But it was still prevalent in my life, and now I'm very happy it's not.
Right. Now, and I think we're both in this place, we see like a teacher or a sports coach drinking a pop, and we're like, what are they doing? Right. That's gross. Like, how do they not know? Oh, right. Because we haven't taught them yet.
But it was definitely a long journey, right? I couldn't have done it day one to just, the first time I gave up pop for Lent, I couldn't have told myself that you're never going to have another one. That wasn't going to work. It had to be this gradual progression towards less and less and less and then none. I think that was super important for me.
Okay, and you know what? That's my next question, actually. I wrote a post many years ago and have updated it since because it wasn't accurate anymore, called How to Boil a Husband, which is a term you came up with. What does that mean?
Well, it has to do with the whole story of boiling the frog, where if you put a frog in a pot of water and you slowly turn up the temperature, he'll never jump out. Even though he's fully capable of doing it, he doesn't notice the temperature changes and he'll gladly boil himself to death.
Death, right.
Yeah. This is similar idea.
Not quite as negative.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So boiling the husband, what What does that entail?
Yeah, that perfectly encapsulates our journey in that, it was one change at a time, and it wasn't necessarily that I was 100% on board right away, but we'd move that way, and I'd see benefits, and eventually it just became intrinsic in my mind, and it was a habit was formed, and things weren't as hard to give up anymore, or as, well, this is weird, we're having raw milk, it just became normal.
Right, but it had to be slow. Had to be gradual. That's the boiling part.
That's it, yeah. And that's a huge point of emphasis. It wouldn't have worked if you came and said, we're giving up grains, we're giving up dairy, like day one, we're doing all these things that normal people don't do. Yeah, I would have fought against that. You need time to see the benefits. You need time to get comfortable with being different than countercultural, different than society. Like, that's a huge step it's not comfortable. And but eventually you realize that it's quite beneficial. Yes,
and I think one word that we've used over and over throughout this conversation is shift, right? And shift kind of automatically shows that it's small. We're making small changes, small shifts in thinking, shifts in habits, shifts in purchasing habits, shifts in food. It's never, for us at least, it's not a 180. There are people in the world who can 180, but they're kind of few and far between, I think.
I think it's certainly if you have a health crisis all of a sudden, if you had to have heart surgery, then you may 180 how you're doing it. It's always been a goal of mine to avoid that kind of stuff, so, the sooner we can start to make changes, the better.
Right. Totally. Okay, so I promised we'd talk about physical activity. I still do not have a regular exercise routine, but how has that changed over the years for you?
It's become more consistent, I would say.
When we first got married, it was just all sports. It wasn't working out.
Right.
It was just kind of playing sports.
It wasn't working out consistently. Okay. Yeah, if there were friends to work out with at the gym. I played roller hockey a lot when we were early in our marriage, and that. Yeah, but that was great exercise.
Yes.
And then as I got kind of too old to do that, and even before that, I tried to throw in more exercise. It's become more of a regular thing for me, for sure.
Yeah, and there are some landmarks on that journey too. First time I ran, growing up, I hated running. I was an athlete. Like, I played basketball and I hated running too. I wasn't an athlete.
I did not enjoy distance running. Every year at the presidential fitness test, you're supposed to run a mile, and I never did it without walking at least part of it. I was very slow. So it wasn't until like my late 20s where I actually was able to run a mile without stopping, because I was determined I wanted to try one of these 5Ks. There's a neat social aspect to it. A lot of my friends were doing it. So I did the couch potato, the 5K program. And I remember the first time I ran 2 miles without stopping. And I just thought it was the greatest thing in the world. Because again, I'd never run 1 mile through, 98% of my life up until that point. So I texted all my friends, I just ran 2 miles without stopping. They weren't actually that impressed. Apparently a lot of people can do that. But, but at the time, I thought it was really cool. And then eventually I could get to that 5K, and I thought, this is pretty cool. I wonder how far I can go. So I kind of worked myself up. I did a 10K, and then I still remember the first time I did 10 miles without stopping. And I thought that was amazing.
So much.
But it's a great substitute as a guy. I like the competitive spirit. That's why I like sports, and I like the feeling of succeeding and overcoming obstacles. So to run 2 miles, then 5 miles, then 10 miles, I got that same kind of high from it.
Okay.
And when I ran 10 miles, again, I texted all my friends, like, this was amazing. I felt great. It wasn't particularly fast, but I did it without stopping, and I definitely enjoyed that feeling.
But now you don't run anymore.
I don't run anymore.
That was kind of the calorie myth, a little bit.
A little bit of the calorie myth that, steady state cardio isn't necessarily all that helpful. A little bit, my joints in particular didn't really care for it.
And
but
you fall asleep at 8 o'clock sometimes.
Yeah,
when you're
tired.
Distance running, that was not that fun.
Right. It's a great way to get in your head, though, and just, think for a long time. So I kind of missed that part. But I do a lot of workouts in our basement. I do a lot of home video workouts, which work great for me. But they still get that sense that I'm missing from competitive sports, achievement. the ability to maybe lift more than you could before, or keep up a certain pace a little longer than you could before. Those things are still motivating and exciting to me, so I like to keep them up.
Yeah, and I feel like there's some oscillation there too, where it's, oh, Christmas is awful. I don't know, November, December is terrible. It's always like, you know, just really good, meeting goals, working out 3 to 5 times a week. And then November, December comes, and it's like, well, there was so much going on. We get
It's
busier,
when you get
right?
busy, and it's when you don't schedule. For me, it's when I don't schedule the workouts. Like if I know I'm working out at 8 o'clock, I'll do it. If I think I'll work out when I find a lull in the day,
It doesn't always happen.
doesn't always happen.
Days don't have lulls.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Necessarily. Yeah, so, but what I really appreciate about you is that you do always, like, a month or two after kind of falling off the horse, you, like, always get back on, and you do at least minimum 3 times, and really hard workouts, heavy weights, you know, HIIT training, stuff where you're sweating and you're detoxing, and we do yoga once a week. That's my workout. And we've been getting more, and we get more walks in. Like, he's trying. He, like, reminds me of the importance of, you know, I'm working so hard to feed the family well, I need to also move my body. I don't know if I have to sweat that much, but he thinks maybe. So, who knows? Closing words, just like most important, distill down to like a sentence or two. If in a relationship, like one spouse really wants to make healthy changes and the other isn't ready, what does spouse A need to know from someone who used to be spouse B?
Certainly don't expect it to change overnight. You have to be willing to go slowly and pick one change and pick a half a change, you know. For me, it worked great to cut things out completely. In other words, if I was drinking pop 6 times a week, I wouldn't benefit from drinking it 3 times a week. That'd be too hard for me. I wanted to go a month without drinking it at all. That was, for me, more effective. But whatever you do, expect it to go in cycles and slowly into baby steps. It's
Sure,
all about,
and have some setbacks, like walking in with the cereal.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and take a month off pop and then go back to it, and then try to take 2 months off pop later, and you know, anything like that.
Yeah. And I think, too, we've always had a really open relationship where I would try to explain what we were doing. He said today, no, I don't think the knowledge was that important. It was seeing successes. I was like, oh, for 10 years I've been telling people the knowledge is important. But it's a little bit of a 1-2 punch. Like, you got to know why you're making a change. Make one change at a time, little baby steps, gradual. And then when you can see success, when you can see weight loss or increased energy or decreased triglycerides or diarrhea disappearing, Crohn's diagnosis completely disappearing.
Right.
That's our latest news. Last colonoscopy, the doc's like, yeah, I don't see Crohn's. So
Right.
I don't know.
He said either you never had it or you've cured it, and I can tell you that I had it. That much I know.
Crazy.
And so it's an incurable disease, but it's gone.
I'm still processing that. Like, that's the first time I think I've said it publicly. So,
Right.
ta-da, 10-year anniversary of kitchen stewardship. But yeah, thanks. Thanks for putting up with me all these years and for the last however many minutes that was.
It's been a ride.
We appreciate it. You're on my schedule again for Father's Day
Okay.
to talk about the importance of fathers in healthy living. Just announced that for the first time, too. Sorry, babe. I'm Katie Kimball from Kids Cook Real Food. At Kitchen Stewardship, we help families stay healthy without going crazy. At Kids Cook Real Food, we build connection, confidence, and creativity in kids where they feel like they can make their own healthy food. And together, we're just connecting families around healthy food, and that's what we are. That's what we do. This has been my interview with my husband, Chris Kimball, who works alongside me, works on his own business. We eat food together. We make a lot of food. We make a lot of dishes.
A lot of dishes.
Don't tell him about the dishes. Don't talk about the dishes. But anyway, we really hope that this has been inspiring and helpful to you as far as taking those baby steps and realizing that you don't need to see a huge success right away. Celebrate the quick wins, celebrate the easy wins and the little steps that you're taking, and realize that over 10 years or over 1 year, incredible changes can happen in your health, in your activity, in what you eat, and as long as you remain respectful and try to respect what page you're on. Hopefully, my prayer for you all is that you can end up on the same page with your spouses, just like we are. I'll see you next time on the Healthy Parenting Connector. Okay, so So we were just interrupted by a call from daycare
Mm-hmm.
asking if Gabe could have a cupcake for snack.
Right.
Because a friend brought them in.
Uh-huh.
And I'm thinking, no! I said, yes, I'm sure that'll be fine. Because if we cut our kids off cold turkey and they still live in the world where people don't get it yet, it's not gonna work. They're gonna sneak food, they're gonna have bad associations with eating, and they will have, they won't understand why to eat healthy. So even with our kids, even though I hate it, I mean, we keep them pretty tight for the first 3 years, but once they have friends and they're out in the world, you just gotta let them learn their way a little bit. And I don't know if we're doing it quite right, but we're working on it.
I mean, from my experience, I'm 100% sure that you yourself have to make the decision. If someone else makes it for you, that doesn't work as much. But if you can see the benefits, that's when you can get on board fully and easily, more easily. Kind of gradually is important, but